Good afternoon and welcome to Reflection and Prayer Time on this Friday noon, and thank you for joining. I want to read a text from 1 Samuel. It's a well-known text about the beginning part of Prophet Samuel. How God called Samuel. So even this segment is titled God Calls Samuel. And I'm reading 1 Samuel chapter 3, the first 10 verses. The boy Samuel served the Lord under Eli. In those days, the Lord did not speak directly to people very often. There were very few visions. Eli's eyes were so weak, he was almost blind. One night, he was lying in bed. Samuel was also in bed in the Lord's house, where the ark of the agreement was. God's lamp was still burning. Then the Lord called Samuel, and Samuel answered, "I am here." He ran to Eli and said, "I am here, you called me." But Eli said, "I did not call you. Go back to bed." So Samuel went back to bed. The Lord called again, "Samuel." Samuel again went to Eli and said, "I am here, you call me." Again Eli said, "I did not call you, go back to bed." Samuel did not yet know the Lord, and the Lord had not spoken directly to him yet. The Lord called Samuel for the third time. Samuel got up and went to Eli and said, "I am here, you call me." Then Eli realized the Lord was calling the boy. So he told Samuel, "Go to bed. If he calls you again, say, 'Speak, Lord, your servant, I am your servant, and I am listening.'" So Samuel went and lay down in bed. The Lord came and stood there and called as he had before, "Samuel, Samuel." Samuel said, "Speak, Lord. Speak, Lord. I am your servant, and I am listening." This is the living Word of God, and thanks be to God. Exactly 21 years ago, as a family, we came to United States. And the purpose was to do my higher study, doing Doctor of Ministry at Asbury Theological Seminary in Lexington, the state of Kentucky. We were there for a year. For me, the first year was an extensive residential study program. For example, all the students who were part of this doctoral program, we were required to read almost 100 books and more than 50 articles in a year. And all these books and articles were related to biblical preaching and Christian leadership. I don't remember all the books, neither the articles, but one of the articles has really stood with me. And we had to write a reflection paper or summary paper on all the books and articles. And this particular article was not only interesting but extremely helpful for my ministry. The title of the article, it was several pages. The title of the article was The Art of Listening, Becoming a Better Communicator by Becoming a Better Listener. That was the title of the article. I believe it was authored by James S. O'Rourke. I hope I'm saying his last name properly. James O'Rourke, and it was published by a secular business center, Eugene D. Fanning Center for Business Communication. The article did not have any biblical reference, but at the same time the article was introduced to the students for the sake of enhancing our communication and listening skills. If you look at the title of the article, The Art of Listening, so one confusion was clarified for me. I was always struggling to understand whether listening was an art or a science. So this article helped me to understand listening is an art to be developed into a skill. The second thing, if you look at the subtitle of this article, The Art of Listening, Becoming a Better Communicator by Becoming a Better Listener. Listening and communication, they go together. At the same time, listening is also one kind of communication, that communicating to various parts of my system what we hear. So now and then I go back to this article and also my own summary of this article in order to continue to educate myself, because preachers, pastors are basically communicators. And we are also called to be good listeners. I remember the article begins with several paragraphs differentiating between hearing and listening. Some of us, we may already know the difference between hearing and listening. This article also gave some statistical report, and I vaguely remember, 70% we hear and only 30% we listen. For example, right now I hear in this room the sound of the fan, some kind of a sound. I just hear. I don't listen. And also outside it's drizzling, so I also hear some raindrops. Hearing, according to this article, hearing is just a physical thing. You have 2 ears, and I can hear so many things all through the day. All kinds of things, all kinds of noises, all kinds of sounds. But hearing is basically, I don't process, which means listening is a process. But it begins with hearing. Hearing, I just receive a message, but I don't have to do anything with what I hear or what I have heard. But listening is very intended action or behavior. So that's why the title of the article says, The Art of Listening. It begins with hearing, I hear a message. And then I don't stop there. I take hearing to the next level. I try to understand, analyze, rationalize what I'm hearing. And also many times I do evaluate, and we all do that. Whether I'm hearing the right things or wrong things. Sometimes we accidentally or unexpectedly hear very obnoxious and ugly things, and we even tend to close our ears. We close our ears. We don't want to hear. Then finally, listening begins with hearing and understanding and analyzing and rationalizing and evaluating what is good and bad and ugly. But sometimes we are asked or required or expected to respond to what is heard, what I have heard. How many times, people end up with the question, what do you think about this? So we process mentally and emotionally what is being heard in my ears, and it does not stay there in the ears. It goes to our mind, it goes to our emotions. It brings joy, it brings sorrow, it challenges, it gives inspiration, it gives some spiritual wisdom. So let me move from that article, The Art of Listening, becoming a better communicator by becoming a better listener, to the biblical story that we have heard. It's the temple of the Lord, and in one verse we have heard the temple lamp was still burning, but it was night. And Eli and the little Samuel, I believe he was 10, 12, 11 years old, little boy. And he was an assistant to the priest Eli. And when the Lord called him, and this is what he said, "Speak, Lord. Talk to me, Lord. I am your servant, and I'm listening. I'm hearing your call, and do you want me to do something with the call?" I'm a small boy. I may not have the maturity level of analyzing and rationalizing and evaluating, but at the same time I can respond. I've already responded. Yes, speak, Lord. Talk to me, Lord. I'm your servant. And your servant, little Samuel, 12 years, 11 years, 10 years old, little Samuel is listening. I'm ready to hear what you have to say. And I will make sure that I will understand what you're trying to say. Maybe as I grow up, I will remember this day, and I will rationalize, I will analyze. This is what happened on that night. The lamp was burning, and Eli was sleeping, and I was sleeping, and you called me, Lord. And I responded, "Speak, Lord. I'm your servant, and your servant, little Samuel, is listening." I will surely evaluate the value of what I have heard on that night. But today, here is my response. This is my summary of the whole thing, the text, as we think about hearing and listening. Little Samuel focused. just focused. When he said, "Your servant is listening," little Samuel focused on what God wanted to say or speak to this little boy. I think when we start the process like that, or when we start practicing the process, then it becomes a skill. Not only listening to God for His voice and spiritual wisdom and direction and guidance, and we can also listen to people. And as we have been going through this difficult time, a time of crisis worldwide with this pandemic, there are people with a lot of not good stories, painful stories, challenging stories, and they want someone to listen to them. Someone to listen to them. I think I like the subtitle of the article, Becoming a Better Communicator. Becoming a better communicator by becoming a better listener. Many times, we tend to react. It's a poor communication. Why? Maybe applying these principles of listening, I have not listened well. That's why I'm not able to communicate well. The word Samuel, my first name is Samuel, but I'm known as Sam. The Hebrew translation of the word Samuel, it simply means asked. You know the story. If you read the first 2 chapters, they are about the birth of the Samuel. His mother Hannah and his father Elkanah did not have children. So Hannah was going to the temple every day. Every opportunity that she had to visit the temple, she went to the temple to pray. And God not only heard her prayer, God listened to her prayer. And God answered her prayer. And that is the story of the birth of the Samuel. Maybe if Hannah were to be living today, this is what she would say when you ask her, to tell the story of the birth of Samuel. She would say, I was asking God day and night. The key word is ask. To give me a child for years. And God heard my prayer, listened to my prayer, and answered my prayers. And the little Samuel was born. Art of listening. Hearing, understanding, evaluating, responding appropriately, and also rationalizing and analyzing as well. Because of this little and powerful response of Samuel, the little boy, "Speak, Lord, I am your servant, and your servant is listening." He became a prophet. I believe he was the first prophet of the people of Israel. He became a judge. He became a wise leader, not just to people, but even to kings. He had the greatest honor of anointing the first king and also the second king of the people of Israel. He began to caution the kings and judges and prophets. It all started with, Lord, speak. Your servant is listening. Even recently I learned that Samuel is well revered by three major religions. The Judaism, the first prophet of the people of Israel, the Hebrews, the Jews. Christianity, a major, powerful character of the Old Testament. And also I'm told that the other religion, Islam, the word Samuel is repeated in several places in their scripture. They also revere Samuel as one of their leading prophets. Almost three major religions. Speak, Lord, I am your servant is listening. I think Samuel began to listen more and more attentively to God and to people. And he became a better communicator going by that article. If we really want to become a better communicator, we better listen well. First, we become better listeners before we become better communicators. So Samuel was not only a prophet, a judge, and a wise counselor. He became, God appointed him to be the kingmaker. Samuel was given the responsibility of finding the right leaders and leading them and cautioning them and guiding them and counseling them and sometimes warning them whenever they stepped out of their line. He became the kingmaker. Speak, Lord, I am your servant. Your servant is listening. He anointed the first king Saul, and then Saul was going off the track with God's guidelines. Then Samuel began to search for a new king, and he anointed David very privately. Above all, Samuel is considered to be a man who was highly committed and devoted to God and his mission. Speak, Lord, your servant is listening. So, I have developed my own philosophy of communication. What is communication? You start with listening, a good listening. Then what is the purpose of listening? I told you about the whole process of listening. Understanding, rationalizing, analyzing, responding, evaluating what is good and bad. What is the purpose of this listening? The purpose of listening is to learn something from others. So listening should always lead to the next level of learning. Unless we listen well, we cannot learn more. Who is a disciple? A disciple is a lifetime learner. Lifelong learner. We learn all the time, regardless of our age. That's why we have in our churches adult Sunday school. Adult Sunday school. Christian education for all levels, all age groups. Listening leads me to learning. And what is the purpose of learning? So that we can grow in maturity, in Christian maturity. The purpose of listening is to learn, and the purpose of learning is to grow in the love, in the knowledge of Jesus Christ. And listening is an art, and that requires work, self-discipline. We can potentially become a skilled listener. As I said many times, we don't communicate well because we don't listen well. I just want to read something at the end, and we'll go into a time of prayer. This is a reading from a journal, and again, it's all about listening. Just a paragraph. In every experience of true listening, especially to God, but also to another person, there is a mysterious moment in which the one who listens steps out from a fortress of self-concern and dwells silently in the truth of the one who speaks. This is a moment of great risk and great courage, for it ushers us into a different way of being in the world. Over time, we may even cease to be people who listen and become people who are listening. People whose very being is shaped. It's a very important sentence. People whose very being is shaped by the posture of listening. So listening is not just an art or skill, it's a behavior, it's a posture. This is the posture of the servant, whose attentiveness is not a sign of cringing compliance, but a mark of human life lived ever more fully in the spirit of love. Amen. Let me read the prayer as I always do, the 15 prayer points of COVID-19. And then I will lead in a time of liturgy of midday prayer. These are the prayer requests: eradication of the deadly virus, progress in effective treatment, suffering of our normal work, isolation and stay at home and the implications, kids and youth who have lost lots of learning for months, amount of pain involved, needed resources, economical, medical, scientific and academic resources. There are people who are trying to take their lives because of high level of stress. Healing and recovering of all the patients, particularly COVID-19 patients. Giving thanks and praises to God for the availability of technology and social media. Our topmost priority at this point, particularly those who are living in Milwaukee area, to flatten and suppress the curve. And I was told today that in Milwaukee County, almost every day there are 6 to 8 new cases. Unemployment and poverty, lack of supplies, food supplies, recovery of economy of national and global scale, healthcare systems and all those who are part of the healthcare systems, preparing our church for the storm and the calm. And this is a liturgy for the midday prayer. Jesus, our Savior, teach us your ways. Our hope is in you all the day long. God of mercy, you are with us and we are with you. God of mercy, this midday moment of rest is your welcome gift. Bless the work of this day that we have begun. Make good its defects, and let us finish it in a way that pleases you. Lord of all eagerness, Lord of all faith, your strong hands are skilled in such a way that they lead us to still waters and green pastures. Please, O God, with your strong hands, you strengthen our lives at the noon of the day and the rest of this day and the weekend. Those of steadfast mind you keep in peace because they trust in you. In returning and rest you shall be saved. In quietness and trust you shall be our strength, as the psalmist puts it. Strong is the love embracing us this afternoon, and faithful our God from morning to night. Amen, and God's blessings of great health and strength to each one of you, and God be with all of us until we meet again. Bye now.